Alright guys, so this is the second video, and in this video we're going to be talking about using pivot tables and pivot charts. Now there's another topic we're going to be doing. Please, if you guys watch this, note it down. I want to teach you advanced conditional formatting, right? Advanced conditional formatting. So that one is a bit more complicated, and since we're just testing things out, I want to just like make videos that you guys will be able to understand for today. Right, then we can always continue when we see each other. All right, so guys, let's get into it. It's using pivot tables and charts, right? Then let me see the quarterly sales. Okay, yes, the quarterly sales will be just fine also. So let's open quarterly sales, or sorry, give me 2 seconds, guys. All right, this is the question. This is the file. Let's use sales data. So it's sales data. When you open, I don't remember the name of the numbers, 091165. That's the second folder. Then you select analyzing data. Sorry, using pivot charts and pivot tables. So then you go to your sales data. So I had already drawn questions out that we're going to be using pivot tables to answer. Right, so let me talk about the pivot table list for a bit. So a pivot table is basically just a summary of your original table, right? So for example, say in this worksheet now, I have in this table rather, I have a column for quarter, right? But there are only 4 quarters, am I right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 4. And then for each quarter, if I decide I want to see a summary for this whole table, right, I will filter out this entire data and I would say focus on only my quarter and my total sales. So Excel will now give me a pivot table, and the pivot table would effectively divide my total sales by the quarters that they fall into. So I'll now have quarter 1, and then I'll have a total value for all the sales in quarter 1. Then I'll have quarter 2 and a total value for the total sales again. Same thing for quarter 2, same thing for quarter 3. Right, so let me show you how to do it. So your pivot tables are objects, right? So you always insert objects. So your pivot tables are objects, you insert objects. So if you go to your insert tab, right, and then the first thing you see is pivot tables, right? So insert a pivot table and select that. So now my table is named. Remember when I taught you about tables just now in that video, I mentioned that you can refer to your range very easily. So instead of having a range reference and the sheet name being mentioned, data, column, blah, 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 we're able to just have the same range referred to as sales data, and that's all. So we're going to say, yes, we want a new worksheet for our Excel pivot table. So I'll say, okay now. Don't check any other thing. Just say, okay. Now, if you look to the right side of your screen, right, you see pivot table fields. So your fields are basically just your column. So remember I said a pivot table is just a summary of what you have in your original table. So you are allowed, or able to select the columns you're interested in. So for the example I just made, if I wanted to see the quarters and the totals that came along in the quarters, I would simply select this. I'll just check this box here. So I'll select quarter, right? You can see it's showing me quarter 1, quarter 2, because these are the values that are available in the quarter column. So I want to see the quarter by the total sales. So now I can see that this is the summation for all the values in the total sales, right? All the values in the total sales. Then all the values in quarter 1. Then for quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, and on, right? So if we look at the first question here, it says, which company sold most in terms of quantity, right? So that means we want to see the company names and the amount of quantity they sold, right? The quantity. Now, if you want to create a new pivot table, right, I'm going to be teaching you the easiest way. You can make research into another way, right? But this is a video, I'm keeping it simple. So if you want to insert a pivot table, another pivot table, you simply Control A. Okay, so sorry, let me get this down. So anytime I click on this pivot table, this pivot field appears, right? So this is just showing me the information I have in the pivot table. So my rows Remember, rows are row 1, 2, 3, like this, right? So my rows are constituted by my quarter, right? I added it. When I checked it, it came to the rows, right? I can simply also move it to columns, but this doesn't make any sense anyways. It's better like this, right? And then these values too. Anytime you check a values, there are always two types of columns. Either you have your text columns or you have your value columns. Nothing else. For Excel, there's nothing else. Your text columns or value columns, right? And I told you that text can also be S1, that's a text. It can be T15, that's also going to be seen as a text. Then your names and anything else, it's obviously text. Alphabet is text. So when you select quarter, it automatically comes to this row, right? So if I want to remove the quarter from this table, or I want to remove the information out of this table, I can simply come here, right? Then I click on this quarter. You can see that it was highlighted. Immediately I click on it, I just drag it to where I have X, right? That's the first way. Now let me check again, and you see quarter is back. Now if I want to remove the quarter again, I can simply come here. This is the simplest way. Simply come here and then uncheck. Quarter goes away. So I still have total sales checked. I can check it again, right? So let me add it again. So I just check quarter and I check total sales, right? So if I want to create a new pivot table, right, so answer a different question, like I said, we're going to be answering this one. What company sold most in terms of quantity? So we have a column that is telling us about the companies, right, the company name, and then we have a column that is telling us about the quantity. So basically we want to filter or summarize this our whole table for only these two columns, these two information. So I go to my sheet here and I say Control A. First of all, I highlight the table. Anytime you insert objects, right, you can always copy and paste them, even if it is table. Control T. Anytime you insert an object, you can always copy and paste. Your charts, you can copy and paste. Your pivot table, you can copy and paste. So the way is to highlight your pivot table, select something inside, a cell inside your pivot table, and say Control A, right? Then you say Control C to copy. Then you select another cell and say Control V, and then you can see I have an exact copy of this pivot table here, right? An exact copy of this pivot table here. Okay, so now let me remove. How do I remove this? I'm going to give you guys 2 seconds. No, I won't actually, since the video is not going to be that easy. So I'm going to show us how to now remove this information so I can have a fresh pivot table. I want to use this pivot table to answer the questions about the quantities and the companies. So all I have to do is make sure I'm selected this one, not this one. This is where I want to select. Then I say uncheck quarter, right? And then uncheck total sales. Now I want to add my information about my companies and their quantities they sold. So I simply come up here and select company name, right? And then quantity. So now I have a company and I have the total quantity that company sold, right? I've been able to summarize the entirety of my table into this one table, right? So let's do that again. I need a new pivot table. I want to answer this second question. Show the top 5 selling products by quantity, right? In brackets, quantity. So now this time I'm interested in the quantity column, right? And the product name. So I will see all the products and their total quantities, right? So if I go to sheet 2, again, I need a new pivot table. Control A, right? Control C, right? And then pasting here, Control V. Now I'm not interested in all this information anymore. I simply select this and then also select this. So I've been able to filter my pivot table or remove the information, and now I have a different pivot table. So now I want to answer the products, right? And their quantities. So check products, check quantities, right? So you can now filter all of this. Or I said filter. I want to remove the formatting. I want to remove the decimal points, because if it's quantity, there's no point. Like if I buy one, it's either I buy one loaf of bread or I don't buy bread. Do you understand? There's no 0.4% bread or anything. So I want to make them whole numbers. So we know the formatting now. Numbers format group, and I press this. And so I know that the total quantity sold for all the products are 30,391. Then Bluetooth speakers sold this amount, like that. So now the question actually says show the top 5, right? It says show the top 5 products by quantities, right? So when we want to do that, is a filter option, right? So you come to this filter button. Remember this filter button when we created a table, right? So this filter button, and we select it and we say values filter. Now we want to filter it based on the values, right? We want to see the top 5 products now by the quantity they sold. So it's a value filter. What we are doing is we are filtering our table by values. We want to see the top 5. Do you understand? So you click on your filter button, right? And then this is when we've discussed this, how to filter. Then we click on your filter buttons and you see value filter, because you want to filter for the top 10 values, right? So value filter, and then you see top 10. Now I change it to top 5 because that's what the question says. The question says top 5, so you can see top 5 items by sum of quantity. So I say okay, and voila, immediately I have my sum of quantity. Now I want to sort it so I can have it in arranging, I can descending order or ascending order. So I discussed this with us already. You click the column by which you click a cell in the column by which you want to arrange it or sort it by, and then you just right click and you say sort smallest to largest. So smallest to largest. So the smallest is the television in the top 5 now, and then the largest is the music players. All right. So I want you guys to answer the rest of the question. That's my assignment to you, right? I've done 1, 2. I've done the first 2. So I want you guys to answer the remaining 3. This number 6 is an advanced one, and I'm going to sort it when I'm with you guys, when we are together. So don't answer number 6. Just use pivot tables to answer these questions, these 3, right? So now, this part of the question, change it to quarter. Right, so which quarter sold the highest? That's the question I want you to answer. So you answer this, show the top 5 by revenue, top 5 products now, then which quarter sold the highest, then show the distribution of total sales by month. So your total sales column and your month, right? Total sales column and your month. So I'll see you guys. Maybe I'm going to make one more video. So I'll see you guys in a bit.